Hello, my dears. Here is a story about adultery and infidelity. Although I understand why my wife may have done what she did, I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive her. As a soldier, I was away from home frequently, and my exceptional service earned me several decorations. I was always on the move, and my wife was left at home waiting for me. Despite the distance, we spoke regularly, even on the days I was on a mission, and hearing her voice always made me happy. She would share about her day and what had happened. Despite the challenges we faced together, my wife always made me feel loved and appreciated. We spoke frequently, and she would tell me how proud she was of me, even during the difficult times. I love her deeply, and the only thing that hurt me was not being able to see her in person as often as I wanted. Our time together was always brief, and I had to return to work, but she was understanding. Now she feels that she has no one to blame but herself and doesn't know how to make things right with me. The worst part is that I feel guilty for blaming her. I'm angry at her for what she did to our marriage and for causing me so much pain while I'm away from her. It will take time before I can move past it, even with therapy. Her actions are not excusable, and I hope she doesn't come into contact with any of my family members. My mother still calls her, but I don't want her near my grandmother or step-grandmother because their names alone make me uneasy. No matter how close we may have been growing up, I don't want my wife to ever meet my parents, especially my father, who is still angry. But let me start from the beginning and tell you why I can never forgive her. It all started a few months ago when I returned from a tour, and my wife was supposed to be waiting for me at the airport. I was excited to see her, and she was usually just as eager to see me. When we got home, I had planned out my entire holiday, and we had a great time together exploring different places. The prospect of meeting new people, in particular the new friends she had acquired, excited her. She would always introduce me as her spouse, but occasionally she would refer to me as Sir, or some variation thereof. It never occurred to me that being her husband would be such a tumultuous journey until we began living together. She was aware that I enjoyed sleeping in her company, and when we shared a bed, she would chatter incessantly in the middle of the night. In addition, she would whisper sweet nothings in an attempt to seduce me. During one of our lovemaking sessions, my wife attempted to remove her blouse but accidentally unfastened the button on her bra, allowing my hand to explore beneath her clothing without any hindrance. Our nights of passion were always intense and enjoyable, with no delays. This was a common occurrence for us. In the morning, we would venture out and explore the town, meeting all of her acquaintances. She introduced me to everyone, from her close friend Trish at the bank where she worked, to her friendly neighbor Daniel. We engaged in meaningful conversations, and I found him to be a fairly decent individual, leading to an almost instantaneous friendship. Although he was curious about my missions, I refrained from divulging too much information, which he respected. Having someone like Daniel around was actually enjoyable. Every now and then, we would have lunch at his abode, and the cuisine he whipped up was so scrumptious that it was truly remarkable. Although I would love to assert that I consumed enough of his food to satiate my hunger, it was likely not the case. He would always remind me of what I had missed out on during my previous visits. I cherished the chance to spend more time with him than usual, as it was an ideal way to unwind. Furthermore, my spouse and I would occasionally get together after work when we had no other engagements. I was utterly exhausted, struggling to keep my eyes open, and so we decided to have some tea together before drifting off to sleep beside each other. It felt natural and comforting. I loved her more than anyone else, and she reciprocated those feelings. Although we had not been married for long, I had not yet divulged my true emotions to her, but I knew that the time was drawing near. Perhaps in a year or so I would express my feelings. Until then, I had a plan in place that I couldn't abandon. After a week, I had to depart and return to my missions. It pained me to depart and leave my wife once more. However, I found solace in the fact that I had Daniel as a friend who could keep an eye on Alice. He was someone I trusted more than anyone else to care for her. It was heartening to see Alice bonded so well with Daniel, and their friendship brought me peace of mind. I no longer had to fret about her well-being. Knowing that they were content together, I could rest easy. It was time for me to leave once more, but I was confident that my wife would be well taken care of. Despite everything she had endured, I was confident that she would be able to manage on her own. I hoped that this ordeal would enable her to comprehend, but for the time being, my sole responsibility was to ensure that she was provided for. That was all within my power. Although it was time for me to depart, I knew that I would return eventually. It seemed unjust that I could not be with her daily. It pained me that I could not embrace her every time I left or plant a gentle kiss on her forehead each night before retiring to bed. I was consumed by guilt as I wished that I could be with her more and converse with her as we once did. It was agonizing, but I was aware that I had a duty to fulfill. Upon my return, perhaps I could offer her the genuine relationship that she deserved, rather than some bizarre agreement. Maybe she would come to understand that my love for her surpassed her affection for me. I was willing to bide my time until then. Even though it appeared futile, I believed that she was worthy of someone better than me. Despite the ache in my heart whenever we were apart, it was irrelevant. My love for her knows no bounds, and I will do anything to make her see it. She's worth every effort, every struggle, every sacrifice. Walking into work that Monday morning, I was exhausted from my recent mission. Placing my belongings on my desk, I noticed my secretary eagerly beckoning me to her office through the window. Anticipating a mundane tale, I entered my secretary's office, only to find her engrossed in her phone. Curiosity piqued. I inquired about the cause of her excitement. She could barely contain herself as she revealed that my spouse had just informed her of her pregnancy. While puzzled as to why my wife had shared this news with my secretary, I couldn't help but feel elated. Though admittedly unfamiliar with infants and the prospect of fatherhood, I couldn't wait to embark on this new journey with my beloved. They provided me with a compelling motive to finally request leave from work, instead of toiling away all day. I yearned to play a role in her children's lives, even if it was just a fleeting one. The notion of children had never genuinely crossed my mind before. It seemed absurd, but as she spoke about it, reminiscing on the plans we had made throughout the years, it began to sound enticing. She often expressed her desire for a large family akin to her own upbringing. The radiance that illuminated her face while discussing children was captivating, and I was confident she would make an exceptional mother. I was well aware of the significance of children in her life, and I was thrilled to have the chance to be a part of it. It seemed as though all our aspirations were finally materializing, even though I had yet to fully comprehend the magnitude of parenthood. She informed me that she had already undergone some tests, and the results were positive. The announcement filled me with unbridled joy, and I was already making arrangements to return and remain by her side throughout the duration of her pregnancy. The following days flew by as my wife and I savored our leisure time, indulging in movie nights and pizza dates, occasionally even venturing to hotels. She seemed to relish every moment spent with me. Although I was content to be away from her for only a brief period, something felt amiss as we sat side by side in the cinema, gazing at a film we had handpicked. Though she smiled, her eyes betrayed her boredom as she struggled to concentrate on the film. I extended my hand, clasping hers tenderly, eliciting a flutter in my heart. In that moment, nothing else seemed to matter but the touch of her skin and the thoughts in her mind. The months flew by in a blur, and before we knew it, she was due to give birth. We accompanied her to the hospital, where she was admitted for several weeks leading up to the delivery. When the night of her labor arrived, I experienced a sense of apprehension, yet I was reassured by the knowledge that she was in a reputable hospital. As the doctor emerged, his expression was disconcerting, prompting me to leap up and approach him hastily. Inquiring about the situation, he informed me that my wife and child were both healthy, but the newborn had some complications. Unclear on the nature of these complications, I trailed behind him to ascertain their severity. My wife appeared distressed, and as I caught a glimpse of the infant in her arms, I immediately recognized that the child was not mine. The baby had a darker complexion. As I gazed up at Alice, realization dawned on me that she had overstepped the boundaries. It was inconceivable for her to have given birth to a child that bore no resemblance to me. Despite her cries for my attention, I departed from the room and headed back to our abode. I was incapable of viewing the infant without succumbing to my wrath, and I refused to let my emotions get the best of me. As a trained soldier, I required a strategy. Upon arriving home, I discovered that Daniel was nowhere to be found, presumably aware of his transgressions. I couldn't blame him. My intuition had led me to believe that Daniel was the individual who had been intimate with my wife, and now this suspicion had been confirmed. I gathered my belongings and contacted my attorney, who expedited the necessary documents. After several hours, I returned to the hospital to serve my wife with the legal papers. Despite her pleas and attempts to persuade me otherwise, I was unwavering in my decision to depart. I walked away without looking back, regardless of what she did to implore me to stay. As a soldier, I knew there would be numerous women within our unit once I returned to work. Throughout my entire ordeal, I never once felt the need to seek companionship outside of my marriage. Instead, I sought out Daniel, the man who stole my wife's affections, and made sure he understood the depth of my anger. It's uncertain whether he'll be discharged from the hospital anytime soon. As for my wife, I've given up on trying to see her. I doubt she'll return to the hospital after what's happened. It doesn't matter to me anymore. She can do what she wants with our son, as it's in the best interest for both of us. While I packed my belongings, my wife wept. She was in utter devastation, and I felt helpless in consoling her. She blamed herself for not being cautious enough with her actions. After my lawyer read out the divorce papers to her, we both understood that I could stay by her side for as long as I needed to. Once I was done packing and everything was organized, it was time for me to depart. It was an awful feeling to abandon the place I cherished so much, the place I had grown to call my home. However, I couldn't stay with someone who had shattered my trust. The story has come to an end, my friend. Well, I'll ask you to subscribe to my channel. It's very important to me, and I will please you with new stories. See you soon. Bye.